What is the most beneficial part of your job?
I would say knowing that a child came in and wasn't able to do a task, and by the time they left you, they were able to do it and excel in it.
What made you want to work in pediatrics?
Honestly, originally I wanted geriatrics, and I had my rotations in pediatrics and fell in love with the whole, it's enthusiastic, it's happy, it's exciting. You know that you're making a difference early on in their life, and they'll be able to build upon those skills as they grow up. And whereas with geriatrics, you're kind of just helping them stay at the level they're at, or helping them, increase in strength a little bit. But pediatrics, you can change their whole life from the point you start working with them.
What is the best form of communication with families?
One-on-one, going downstairs, talking to them, saying, hey, this is what we've done, this is what I would like you to do, as well as like paperwork to send home as well.
How have telehealth appointments affected you/your patients?
It's benefited some of my patients, some where I had some that didn't visually attend well, and having them on screen has actually improved that, which was surprising to me because I did not expect that. Others, it has really declined their progress because I'm not able to physically assist them with the things that they need. They may not have the items they need to go through all the therapy and that works specifically on their goals.
What advice do you have for graduate school?
Okay. Have an understanding of what you're getting into. Occupational therapy is a very broad program of study. There's not one more so than the other. You've got mental health, you've got geriatrics, you've got pediatrics, you've got actually helping someone transition into an actual job, which is what you would think occupational therapy is. You've got all kinds of different stuff. So know exactly what occupational therapy is before you go in. Time management skill is the number one thing you'll always need to know. Time management is so important. Be prepared to have lots of things on your plate and be able to, once again, manage all of that, and make sure it's something you want to do before you go in and do it.
What was the most impactful thing you learned from school?
Most impactful? Ooh, this is a hard one. There's a lot of impactful things. Knowing how to work, I think the best thing I learned through school was knowing how to work on the fly. So they prepare you for that. They go in there and say, well, you can have all of this planned, but you have to think this is what you're going to have to, you're going to go in here and it might not be the exact same. So they worked with us through scenarios. They would give us a scenario and they would say, this is what you're going to do today in your treatment session. And then you would practice it with the teachers and they would completely change exactly what it needed to be, like what you prepared for it to be. So you would have to think on the fly. So I think them preparing us for multiple different things impacted myself as a therapist later on because I was more prepared.
That's neat. How do you approach treatments?
Okay. How do I approach treatments? Seeing them on the first treatment or seeing them each session?
We'll do the first and then after that.
Okay.
Treatments after that.
So as an occupational therapy assistant, I am given an eval packet. And my supervising OT comes in and tells me a general overview of what that patient does and its functioning level, and I'll read all their eval and pick out the main things, which is usually what their strengths and weaknesses are, what family wants out of it, and then I create a treatment plan based upon those things for the first. Later on down the road, obviously look at my long-term goals and kind of make more short-term goals for that, and work my way up to a skill. So, for instance, they'll have a goal such as like cutting age-appropriate, difficulty, shapes, different things. You can't just expect them to go in there, hand them a pair of scissors and say, here you go, cut this. You have to work up to that. So if I know, I'll assess it the first time I see it, because I can read in the eval all day long, but they might perform differently for me than the first time they do it. So I'll go in and I'll say, okay, let's see how you cut, and I assess that. So then I can tell, do they need more bilateral coordination? Do they need more open web space to be able to open and close? And I use those tasks first before we actually build up to. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. When do you collaborate with other professionals as far as like co-treatment?
Depends. It can be because of behavior. It can be because of inability to withstand an hour and a half of treatment or 2 hours of treatment. It can be because they benefit from multimodality approach, meaning sometimes you get more speech out of a child who's doing gross motor movements than you would as if you sat them at the table and said, okay, say this. If someone is just so weak that they need positioning, if the PT's working on lower extremity and the OT's working on upper extremity, they're getting both things at the same time and they don't fatigue as easily.
What is the most challenging part of dealing with families?
This is a hard one too. Thinking that a child meets the certain criteria based upon their goals, but family thinks that they need more. But you always have to listen to family. They're the ones that, they're the ones that are with them every single day, and they know exactly how they perform. Sometimes even meeting the family's goals because they can be far-fetched sometimes. And you do the best of your ability, and that's all you can do. And I think maybe sometimes communication can be hard too. Being able to put in layman's terms what you're doing and the reasoning behind what you're doing. I think that's another definite thing that school prepares you pretty well for, but takes some time.
What do you like most about your job?
It's rewarding. Every day there's a new experience. The kids, 75% of the time, are pretty excited to see you. I just think at the end of the day, I go home and I think I made a difference today.
What is the biggest challenge you've faced during a treatment?
A completely non-compliant patient with some pretty bad behaviors and not knowing how to calm them. Because that's something that falls within OT, is just that regulation, and you've used all resources and you have no idea what to do at that point, and you don't want to bring them down to mom and dad and be like, here, I don't know what to do, because you're the professional, and that's why they bring them to you. So I think just at the point where something gets so intense that you are unsure, and you've used all things that you know to use, and you're unsure of what to do from that point, I think that's probably the most difficult.
Why did you choose to pursue a career in occupational therapy?
My sister is actually an occupational therapist, so I was really motivated by what she was doing. I had some family members that had OT in the past, and really just like the way that you can use it in all different aspects. You can, if you ever want to change one thing, there's plenty of other things to do within.
What qualities do occupational therapists need to have?
Empathetic, understanding, patience, dedication. You have to really be dedicated to your patients, because you don't just go in and see them for an hour. You go home and you plan, this is what I'm doing with this patient. If they have more things, you have to do additional research as far as what to do for them. So I think hardworking and the empathy is very, very good. Having a holistic, that's OT's favorite word ever, is holistic. Having a holistic approach to each patient makes a big difference too. So just being able to be flexible. Flexible is a good one too.
How do you cope with an overwhelming schedule?
I like this one. I like this one. I think it's very important to take time one day a week, whether it be on the weekend or on the weekday, and taking that day completely for you. Not doing anything work related, not doing anything in that sense, because you have to take care of yourself before you can take care of someone else. So having an overwhelming schedule, sometimes at the end of the week you're like, I have still this, and this to do, and then you begin to hate what you do because you're so overwhelmed. So taking one day to yourself, doing absolutely nothing work related, I think helps as well. And just being honest. If it's too overwhelming, just tell someone, hey, I can't provide the care that these patients need if I'm too overwhelmed.
How often do you have to advocate for a child to continue therapy?
Depends. Most of the time the OT will come in and reevaluate, and if they meet their age typical things, then you don't really have to work for. But if a family is concerned and saying, how do we really need therapy anymore? You can always show them your documentation from where they began and from where they are currently, and then the goal set. So just showing them, hey, this is the progression they've made. This is what we're trying to work them to. Look where they've come from day one till now. And calling doctors, getting that referral again, saying they medically need this. This is what. Getting in touch with school system and seeing what they're doing in the school, just to show the medical necessity of what we provide.
What do you enjoy least about your job?
These questions are so hard to make sense. What do I enjoy least about my job? Documentation. It's a lot. I don't think that you probably don't have to go into such grand detail as I do on my notes, but you see a patient for an hour and you got a whole page note and you see 8 to 9 patients a day. At the end of the day, that's a lot of typing. I hate looking at my computer when I'm not typing.
How do you motivate patients when they do not want to participate?
So I use reinforcers if I have to. Reinforcers are usually my last resort. I like to do the task with the patient. It's more enthusiastic if you say, hey, look at this, it's so much fun, instead of just saying, hey, do 15 sit-ups, let me watch you do it. They're kind of like, why am I having to do this, and you're just sitting there watching me. So I usually will first try to get them to get in the floor and do it with me. If that doesn't work, then I say, okay, let's use a reward system. If you do this, then you get to choose the next thing, so they feel like they have some kind of control over. And then last, I'll use a reinforcer, such as if you do really well, the last 3 minutes we'll watch your favorite video or something like that. That's usually my last resort, though, because reinforcers can end up being more harming than helpful.
Do you enjoy fine or gross motor therapy more, and why?
I know as an OT I should probably say fine motor, but I like gross motor because you can be creative with both.